Well, once again, it is time for movie reviews here on Pure 24/7 Radio, and I have the privilege of welcoming Andy Godfrey from Sorted Magazine. Hello, Andy.
Hi Nathan, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a busy week here in Milton Keynes, and looking forward to talking to you about movies because that's something I love to talk about, as you know.
Indeed, and it is great to hear about movies. And we talked about last week, there were a few new films that were coming out. I understand you've managed to see some of those.
Yeah, well, I said I would try and see five of them. I actually, due to various circumstances, only got to see three, but we can review them, and these three are all in the top 10 at the moment. And there's one that I want to particularly highlight because it's exceptionally good. Um, The bad news at number 7 in the UK chart at the moment is a film called Megalopolis. Now, this is a film we mentioned last week where the director and writer has decided that the Roman Empire basically didn't fall. We still behave in the same way today as we behaved in Roman times. And it's a film called Megalopolis. Adam Sandler stars as a guy who is an architect. And basically, he's demolishing New York, making way for a new paradise that is going to be based on Roman design. He's using a brand new material that he's discovered that somehow gives him the ability to control time. Okay. Now, this film is by director Francis Ford Coppola, who made The Godfather, who made Apocalypse Now. And after he finished making Apocalypse Now way back in the 80s, set about writing this film. He has been trying to make this film for 40 years. And Nathan, I have to tell you that watching it, it felt like 40 years. This is not only the worst film of the year, this is one of the worst films I have ever seen in my life. And I have seen dozens of films. 3 people walked out of the screening that I was at. I wish to goodness I had gone with them because this is boring drivel. This is absolute rubbish. This is a film that is so bad. It's got no beginning. It's got no ending. The actors were allowed apparently to make up their own lines and do what they wanted to do on set. And it shows because there's no cohesion. It is just awful. I was bored after 5 minutes, bored stiff. And it went downhill from there. I mean, it really did. I've been wanting to rant about this ever since I saw it because it was awful. Mark Kermode, my friend, who's probably the nation's favourite film critic, he described it as one of the worst films he's ever seen. And I saw his review before I saw the film, and I thought, it can't be that bad. Come on, Mark. It can't be that bad. It's by Francis Ford Coppola, the director of The Godfather, for Pete's sake. I walked in within 5 minutes. I was thinking, Mark, you are absolutely right. Please, please, people, do not go and see this film. Do not give the writer director money. Do not give the actors money. Do not give the production team or the studio money because they'll only go and make another one. It is absolute rubbish. It is about, I don't know what it's about. It's about New York being demolished to make way for some sort of Roman utopia that some bloke can control time, and I didn't understand how or why. And I concentrated. I promise you, I just didn't get it. I was sat there scratching my head. The film is 2 hours 18 minutes long, and as I say, after 5 minutes, I wanted to walk out because I didn't have a clue what was going on. That stayed with me for the rest of the running time. It is absolute rubbish. It's called Megalopolis. It's been getting terrible reviews. There are 1 or 2 people who've liked it, but I think that they are just deliberately bucking the trend to get noticed. If you say you like this film, you are going to get noticed. The vast majority of us hated it, and I hated it with a passion. I mean, I just. So, and it's number 7 in the box office. That goes to show actually something, because you would expect a film by this director to go in at number 1 or number 2 or be in the top 5. The fact that it's in number 7, word of mouth is spreading. Forget it. Absolutely forget it. Worst film of the year. One of the worst films I've ever seen. Megalopolis, rubbish. Number 3 in, now that film cost something like 50, 60, 70, 80 million dollars to make. Okay. By comparison, the film at number 3 in the top 10 is called The Outrun. And this didn't cost anything like that to make. This is a wonderful film. This is a film filmed in the Orkney Islands. So you've got beautiful scenery. You've got waves crashing against the rocks. You've got gorgeous seascapes. You've got winter, summer, spring, all the various seasons on these Scottish islands at the top of Scotland. Saoirse Ronan plays a young girl who has left the Orkney Islands, left this close-lit rural community, gone to London to study, but in London discovered alcohol and became an alcoholic, to the extent that she has to end up going to Alcoholics Anonymous. Her boyfriend dumps her, her friends dump her. Nobody likes her anymore because she's become such a terrible person as a result of the dependence on alcohol. She comes back to the Orkney Islands to kind of redeem herself, to find herself again. Now, her mum is a born again Christian, and her mum welcomes her back and says, I've been praying for you. We see the mum's Bible study group coming round and trying to encourage her. Her father, her father and her mother are separated. Her father is a sheep farmer living in a caravan on a farm. She goes out and helps him with the lambing. It is just a wonderful film about self-discovery. It's about her recovery. There's nothing sensational about it. The story is told in a non-linear way. So we get flashbacks, and then we get, we see her in her current state, and then we even get a little bit of sort of stuff out of time. But she's in every scene. She gives an incredible performance as a recovering alcoholic. I loved this film. I thought it was very telling. I thought it was very touching. It's got a very deep message about the dangers of alcohol. She at one point she says to her mum, "Oh, your prayers didn't work, did they?" And her mum says, "Yes, you did. You're back here and you're recovering." So there's an interesting angle on prayer in this film. It's called The Outrun. It's number 3 in the box office top 10. I really, really love. There's a scene towards the end where she goes swimming on a cold day, and she's shivering standing in the water, and she goes in, but it's like she's washing herself, she's cleansing herself. It's almost like she's being baptized and cleansing herself of her past life. And it is a remarkable performance. It's a remarkable film. Not many films. The producers are claiming that this is the only film ever to be shot in the Orkney Islands. That's not actually true. There have been other films shot in the Orkney Islands, but it is a wonderful, wonderful film. And I'm so pleased that Megalopolis is at 7 in the charts, and this low budget, low key film about a young girl recovering from alcohol abuse is number 3 in the charts. It just says a lot, and I just think it's terrific. So that's at number 3. At number 10 in the charts is another film I said I would see last week, which is about the end of the world. Or is it? It's a film called Never Let Go. We are in a log cabin in the woods. We find a mother with her 2 boys, and they are living an existence where the mother keeps telling the boys the world has ended, and we've got to go out and we've got to forage for food. But the evil that has caused the world to end might be lurking in the woods. So what she does is she makes them tie themselves to a long length of rope when they go out, so that in case anything grabs them, she can instantly pull them back in, or they can run quickly back in. And she says, as long as you've got the rope tied to you, I didn't quite understand this bit, but as long as you've got the rope tied to you, the evil can't touch you. And these young boys, they start to doubt their mum. They start to wonder. They start to question. They start to, at one point, untie the rope so that they can go a bit further into the woods and hopefully into the real world and see what's really going on. It's a mystery thriller. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was great, but I enjoyed it. And that's number 10 in the top 10. It's called Never Let Go. So there you go, Nathan. Those are the 3 films that we mentioned last week that I said I promised I would try and see. But honestly, people, go see The Outrun. It is really very deeply touching. So that's good. And I'm glad it's number 3. 2 new films in cinemas this weekend. So we have a sequel to 2022's Joker. Now, Joker told the origin story of the Joker from the Batman universe. So we're in Gotham City. That film, I watched it again the other night because the sequel's coming out today. I watched it again. That film's really bleak. It's really dark. It's really grim and grisly and quite violent. So the sequel I assume will be more of the same. Those who have seen it, I haven't, say it is more of the same. So the new Joker movie's out. We've also got an interesting film out today called A Different Man. And this is about a man who has facial reconstruction surgery. He has a disease that causes his face, the nerves in his face to collapse. He has surgery to restore his face. And somebody writes a play about his life. And that's all I can tell you. But he becomes obsessed about this play based on his life. So that's called A Different Man. So that's in cinemas today. So only two new films in cinemas today. But number 3 in the top 10, The Outlaw. Go see it.
Awesome.
Should we just do some films for home?
Absolutely, yeah.
So 3 films for home, and then I want to mention one other thing. So One Life. This is now available for home viewing. This stars Anthony Hopkins as Nicholas Winterton. Now, real guy in the Second World War who had been in Czechoslovakia, as it was then, it's now the Czech Republic, and had noticed that children were really, really suffering under the hands of the Nazis. Jewish children were being shipped off to concentration camps. Other children were being just left to roam the streets as their parents were being rounded up, and so on. And he decided to do something to rescue the children of who were being terrorized by the Second World War and being affected by the Second World War under Nazi occupation in the Czech Republic. It's a really good true story. It's a story I didn't know. This guy saved hundreds of children. He managed to arrange for trains for them to be shipped and brought to the UK. Once they got to the UK, of course, they had to find homes for them. Helen Bonham Carter plays his wife. She says to him at one point, Nicholas, you can't save every child. You can't save every single child in war-torn Europe. And he says, I'm going to save as many as I can. And there was a program back in the 70s that I remember well called That's Life, which sort of told stories like this. And they brought him in and he didn't know. But in the audience that day, the audience was entirely made up of children that he'd saved who were now grown up. So it's a really good film. It's called One Life. It reminded me very much of Schindler's List, for those who've seen Schindler's List. It's a similar sort of thing, but again, a true story. Another true story, in fact, all 3 at home for home viewing this week, Nathan, are true stories. And this one's on Netflix. It's called Scoop. Stars Gillian Anderson, who I met, famous, of course, for The X-Files. So I had a hug with Gillian Anderson. She plays a reporter who got to interview Prince Andrew about his misdemeanors. It's quite a good film. If you're interested in news and current affairs, she did a Newsnight interview with him, this reporter. So Prince Andrew, talking about his misdemeanors, and an infamous interview where he tried to admit that he hadn't done anything, but almost inadvertently admitted that he had in his body language and the way he answered the questions. That's called Scoop. That's on Netflix. Also on Netflix, film starring Bill Nighy, who again I have met. Sorry to all the name dropping. Bill Nighy plays. So every 4 years, I don't know if you know this, but a thing happens called the Homeless World Cup. So this is 5-a-side. It's a World Cup football, but the teams have to be made up of homeless people, and it's a really good thing. So this is the story of the last World Cup, which was played in New York. Bill Nighy is the English coach who he puts an advert out saying, homeless people, if you can play football, come for training, come for selection. He selects a team. They take them to New York. They play against other homeless people from all over the world. And it's a really, really beautiful film. I mean, I love football. I'm a huge football fan. I support the best team in the country, which is obviously Bristol City Football Club. And this film is about the Homeless World Cup. And I really enjoyed it. I didn't even know that this event happened, but it does happen once every 4 years. So that's on Netflix. It's called The Beautiful Game. Really, really, really worth seeing. Even if you don't like football, even if you're not a football fan, watch this film because it will bring home to you the plight of homeless people, not just in our country, but around the world, because we get to meet some of these other teams. We get to experience what they experience. We get to find out about their lives, their homes, their countries, their cultures. And again, they've been brought together to play football. I think it's a really good thing, and it's a film really worth seeing. So to watch at home this week, One Life, true story of Nicholas Winterton who saved children from the Nazis. Scoop, the true story of Newsnight's infamous interview with Prince Andrew. Beautiful game, the Homeless World Cup. And before we talk again, Nathan, I'm very excited because a few weeks ago I mentioned a new Christian film that's coming out. Now, this is getting a premiere in London on Monday, and I've been invited to the premiere and to meet some of the cast. So we did talk about this, but again, it will be out. The premiere's on Monday. I'm not quite sure exactly when it's going to be on a more general release. But again, I want to flag this up for churches and maybe church leaders listening. Consider taking your church to the cinema. There's a film coming out called The Sound of Hope, the Possum Trot story. Possum Trot is a little town in the southern United States where back in the 70s and 80s, a black Pentecostal church, the minister and his wife decided to adopt two children from a local adoption agency. These kids had a really rough background. They'd been abandoned by their parents. The pastor and his wife decided to adopt these kids. Not only did they decide to adopt the kids, but members of their church decided to follow suit. And the result was that 22 families in one church adopted 78 children who needed homes. Of course, they had an instant Sunday school. But they've turned this story into a really touching, moving film. I was fortunate. I got sent a copy of this film a couple of months ago. It's been out in America since July, and it's done really, really good business in cinemas where it's been shown. It's been packing cinemas in America. It's now coming to the UK. There's a premiere, red carpet premiere in London on Monday with the cast and some of the actual children who are now, of course, grown up. And I think they're telling me the pastor and his wife may well be there as well, the real life pastor and his wife. And so it'll be an opportunity for me to meet them. I interviewed the producer the other week, and the producer who put a lot of money into this is one of the guys who works for the adoption agency and had the idea that this should be turned into a film. They put a lot of money into this, and they said, look, what we want to show is that we want to show Christianity in action. We want to show love in action. We want to show what it really means when the Bible talks about loving the widow and the orphan. Well, here is the church that loves the orphans. And some of these kids did not want to be adopted by Christians, they got a bit rebellious. But at the end of the film, we get to see them growing up. We get to see what happened to them. It's a really lovely film. So please, people listening to Pure, look out for this. Look out for the film, The Sound of Hope. Check your local listings. Take a church party to see it. Let's make it a hit. And if it's not showing at your local cinema, just write them a letter, drop them an email, go in and speak to the manager and say, look, there's this new film out called Sound of Hope. It's done really good business in the States. It got a 5-star review in Sorted Magazine. Well, it will do in the next Sorted Magazine. Can you show it, please? It's by the same people who brought us The Chosen, for those who've been watching that TV series. And honestly, it's a lovely, lovely film. And although I've seen it, I'm really excited about being in London. And I'll send you some pictures to Pure of the red carpet premiere. I'm really, really excited about it.
Awesome. That does sound very exciting. Looking forward to seeing those pictures.
Thank you.
Yes.
And that's it for this week, I think.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. There's quite a few new films and a few to watch at home, which is really good.
Yeah.
A few. Do you say they were all three true stories?
The three at home, One Life, Nicholas Winterton saving kids from the Nazis, Scoop, the infamous interview with Prince Andrew about his misdemeanors, and Beautiful Game about the Homeless World Cup. All true stories.
Well, I must say I've never heard about the Homeless World Cup before, so
No,
that does
I
sound.
hadn't until I saw this film, and honestly, it's really, really good. Beautiful Game, it's called. It's really stars Bill Nighy, and I mean anything Bill Nighy is in is worth watching. Bill Nighy is such a great actor, and as I say, I've had the privilege of meeting him. and he's a lovely, lovely guy. So yeah, do seek that out. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andy. Some great films there. One or two to avoid, and some new ones at home. So thanks so much,
Avoid
Andy.
Megalopolis. Run for your life. Save your money. Save cinema. Just do not go and see Megalopolis. I cannot stress this enough. It is awful.
Okay. Well, thanks, Andy. Great to hear from you again. I look forward to speaking again next week.
We will do. Thanks, Nathan. God bless you. God bless you.